I'm divorcing you, you fool, my husband shouted at me over the phone right after I returned from a business trip. I've put up with you for so long, but I've reached my breaking point. If you don't want a divorce, apologize now. I was shocked but said, yeah, I got it. Instead of going to my husband, David, at my in-laws' house, I decided to go somewhere else. My name is Sophie, I'm 28 years old, and I've been married to David, who is 2 years older than me, for 3 years. To put it simply, David is the son of the future CEO of my company. Before we married, I worked at a different company, but after we got married, I switched jobs to work at his company. Now, I work hard as an employee, preparing to be the next CEO's wife. David didn't want me to work at his company, but his father, the CEO, ordered it, and I couldn't argue with that. My job is demanding, and business trips are frequent. We've been trying to have a baby, but my work schedule makes it hard to relax enough for that. Lately, my relationship with David has been getting worse. We're both too busy, and we argue a lot over small things. Just the other day, David yelled at me before I left for work. Sophie, why didn't you wake me up like I asked? I did wake you up several times, David. You told me not to disturb you, and that you would wake up on your own. So, I went to make breakfast. I never said that. Stop lying, he yelled. I'll get in trouble with my dad if I'm late, and now it's your fault. I'm not lying, I woke you up at least 20 times. Your alarm was going off the whole time, too, I argued. I tried to tolerate his irrational scolding, but I finally started pushing back. It led to a huge fight where he said he wanted a divorce. Our in-laws stepped in and helped us avoid a big breakup, but I was getting tired of him throwing around the word divorce over every little problem. One day, while I was getting ready for another business trip, David looked at me with a sad expression. Hey Sophie, off on another trip? He wasn't happy about how often I went on business trips and kept calling them trips. It's not just a trip, it's a business trip. Why do you keep making me say that? I replied, frustrated. Must be nice, always going on trips and leaving all the housework for me. You're probably just sightseeing while I do everything at home, he said. That's enough, I snapped. This is for your company, why can't you just accept it's a business trip? David complained. I can't imagine what it's like to be a rookie, going on trips and doing nothing useful. It's basically a vacation for you. I was really upset. What's wrong with you? Can't you tell the difference between a trip and a business trip? David responded, well, it's true, isn't it? You say I'm stuck with the chores, but you never do anything at home when I'm away. You just leave everything for me. When I'm not home for work, David never does anything around the house. He orders takeout, leaves the laundry piling up, and doesn't even take out the garbage. His laziness makes everything even more stressful, and the divorce threats are just a reflection of his attitude. Even though we both work and spend the same amount of time on our jobs, all the housework is left to me. On top of that, David acts so superior and controlling, which I couldn't stand. Trying to talk to him about it is useless, because he never admits to his mistakes. Instead, he always blames me. As I silently continued getting ready for my business trip, David started yelling again. The future CEO's wife shouldn't be so casual about business trips. If you're not firm like me, the other employees will walk all over you. Exactly, because I'm becoming the future CEO's wife, I have to learn the job and meet with clients. That's why I'm working so hard, I replied. David continued. We live this good life because I'm the son of the CEO. You should listen to me more since it's thanks to me. I couldn't take it anymore. What are you talking about? The company is doing well because of the employees who work hard. Instead of acting like you're so great because you're the CEO's son, you should work harder. David's face turned red with anger. What did you say? What do you mean work harder? I replied, the other day, I heard employees gossiping about you. They said you always push overtime on others, dump tasks on them, and constantly complain. What? Who said that? I'll fire them immediately, David yelled. That's not the point, I said. How can you not see that you're the one at fault? You're only using your father's name. David's eyes widened with anger, and he roughly grabbed my bangs. Don't get too full of yourself. Who do you think got you this job at this company, huh? Ow, let go, I yelled. You're only working at this prestigious company because you married me, got it? He shouted. I was shocked. I've told you many times, I can't avoid this business trip. It's for work. David snapped. Shut up, don't talk back. You married me, so you should just listen to what I say. Suddenly, he let go of my hair, and I fell back onto the floor. If this argument continued, it would probably lead to another divorce scare. So, I forced David out of the room and went back to getting ready for my trip. When I get back, I'll have to clean up a whole week's worth of housework that David has ignored. I'm sure the floor will be covered with clothes again, and the trash won't be taken out. Just thinking about it made me feel exhausted even before my trip. The next day, I went on the business trip as planned. I focused on my work and didn't let personal feelings get in the way. When I came home after a week, I couldn't believe what I saw. "Welcome home," I said, walking inside. The house was spotless, there wasn't a speck of dust anywhere. It looked just like it did the day I left for my trip. I thought, thank goodness, maybe David has finally understood my feelings. It seemed like he had changed and worked hard on the housework. Just as I started feeling relieved that my husband was finally helping, I saw the divorce papers on the table. "What's this?" I said in shock. Next to the papers was a note that said, "I'm going back to my parents' place, we're getting a divorce." Panicking, I called David, and he answered right away. "Did you read the divorce papers?" he asked, sounding casual. His tone annoyed me, and I snapped back, "Wait, are you serious about divorcing me? Obviously, you'd be in trouble if I divorced you, right?" he said, sounding unconcerned. "Don't just casually talk about divorce," I told him. Then David said smugly, "If you want to go that far, I'll set some conditions. If you stop neglecting the housework and listen to me, I might consider withdrawing the divorce, but of course, no more trips for you."
I was furious. What? It wasn't a trip. It was work. David interrupted. Are you talking back? If so, I'm divorcing you. You're such a nag. A nag? I said, stunned. He can't even do anything around the house himself, and he calls me a nag? If he wanted a divorce, I was ready for it too. Got it. If you don't want a divorce, come and apologize now, he demanded. I held back the urge to give in and replied calmly, "Okay, I understand. You should have done what I told you from the start. Now come quickly," he said before hanging up. Instead of going to my in-laws' house where David was, I left the house and went to City Hall. I went to City Hall to submit the divorce papers, and they were accepted without any issues. I was officially single again. 3 hours later, while I was packing up at home, my ex-husband and his mother showed up. They were probably getting impatient since I hadn't gone to their house. As soon as they saw me, they started throwing insults at me. "How long are you going to keep me waiting?" my ex-husband yelled. "That's right, you're a failure as a wife, and here you are, out having fun instead of looking after David," his mother added. I replied, "How old is David?" "He's older than me, isn't he?" Their faces turned angry. "Shut up, stop being stubborn and apologize quickly. We'll really get a divorce if you don't," my ex-husband shouted. "You'll be the one in trouble if we get divorced. Sophie, you could have been the wife of the future president of the company. Are you okay with that attitude?" his mother added. "And if you divorce me, you'll lose this lavish lifestyle. Are you okay with that?" my ex-husband asked. I didn't even care anymore. "Well, I never thought you and David were a good match anyway, so I don't really care," I replied. My ex-husband grinned, looking smug. "Got it. This is your last chance. If you don't apologize now, we're getting a divorce, and I'll kick you out of the company too. Make up your mind quickly." At that moment, I felt an intense anger rising inside me. I had to make him understand that he didn't know the situation. "We're already divorced, you know," I said. "What?" they both asked, shocked. "I've already submitted the divorce papers, and they've been accepted. I'm no longer your wife," I told them calmly. My ex-husband and his mother stared at me, wide-eyed and silent. After a moment, he finally spoke. "What are you talking about? This is a joke, right? There's no way you would have." "Why would I lie? If you don't believe me, go check the records yourself," I said. "No way," he muttered in disbelief. Then his mother, who had been listening quietly, suddenly screamed, "Wait, Sophie, what have you done? You've put a divorce on David's record, our future CEO. It was your son who handed me the divorce papers first. All I did was submit them," I said coldly. My ex-mother-in-law quickly responded, "Cancel the divorce immediately. Do you understand?" "I'm sorry, but once the divorce papers are accepted, they can't be canceled. Besides, I have no intention of canceling," I replied firmly. "What?" she asked, shocked. My ex-husband just hung his head. not knowing what to say, ignoring them both. I continued, I've had enough of being ridiculed every time I go on a business trip. I have to balance work and housework every day. To me, you're nothing more than a burden. Please, Sophie, calm down, my ex-husband begged. Calm down? I'm perfectly calm, I snapped. What's the point of being married if it's only a name? All you care about is yourself, isn't it? I didn't mean it like that, he said, but I could see he was nervous. Do you realize you're losing your place as the CEO's wife? He asked, his tone desperate. Are you okay with that? I didn't transfer to your company to become the CEO's wife, I answered. I don't know how much you've been pampered, but I didn't marry you to take care of you. Are you really ready to give up this lifestyle? My ex-husband pressed. If you just wait a little longer, you'd be the CEO's wife. I absolutely refuse to keep being your caretaker, I said, my voice steady. I'm not your mother, just go live your life on your own. My ex-husband looked like he might cry. His mother, taking a turn, stuttered her final threat. What? I asked, not surprised. If you divorce David, you'll lose your job too, she said, trying to scare me. And so what? I replied calmly. What? Both of them gasped. I've already informed your father that I'm quitting the company, I said, watching their faces drop in shock. To confirm my words, my ex-husband started calling his father. After a few rings, his father answered, and he put the call on speaker. Dad, listen to this. Sophie decided to divorce me on her own, he said. Yeah, I heard. She told me she's quitting the company too, his father replied. She's so selfish. Can't you fire her immediately with your CEO powers? Well, I guess I should fire someone ASAP. You, his father said coldly. Instead of reacting like her son, my ex-mother-in-law confronted her husband, my father-in-law. What do you mean by that? She asked, clearly upset. There's nothing to explain. David's a nuisance who contributes nothing to the company. I'm disappointed in his work ethic, he said. What? How can you suddenly say that about our son? She protested. Quiet, he snapped at her. Turning to David, my father-in-law continued, your work performance is poor. You use the company's supplies without permission, make advances on female employees, and complain about the company cafeteria. You're just no good. Do you think I don't know you're being called incompetent by your subordinates? David started to argue, but his father cut him off, saying, I can't cover for you anymore, even though you're my son. You're not getting a free ride just because you're the boss's son. David tried to defend himself, but my father-in-law said, the only thing I can commend you for is marrying a capable wife. Sophie will continue to work for the company, but you're fired, David. David's eyes widened in shock, but my father-in-law kept going, unaffected by his son's reaction. Unlike you, Sophie is meticulous in her work. She brings in a lot of contracts and is highly regarded by our clients. Many companies have contracted with us because of her. David tried to argue, saying Sophie was just assigned to business trips because she was new, but my father-in-law shot that down, saying, we sent Sophie on more business trips because we trust her, not because she's a newbie. You were making fun of her, calling it a vacation, weren't you? David protested, but my father-in-law had had enough. Let me tell you something, there's no home for you to return to until you become independent. Never come back to this house. Got it? David, in disbelief, said, no, no way. And just like that, my ex-husband was disowned by his father, lost his job, and couldn't even return to his parents' house. His mother tried to defend him, but my father-in-law told her, it's because you spoiled him, and gave her a divorce notice as well. They ended up using up their savings to rent an apartment but couldn't find any work. Their unemployment continued. I still get messages from my ex-husband, Sophie, I was wrong. I won't make fun of you anymore. I promise I'll take care of myself. Please come back. I can't take it anymore. Help me. He was so persistent that I eventually blocked his number. I didn't want to deal with that mama's boy anymore. Meanwhile, I'm still working hard at the company under my father-in-law, who is now the CEO. I have my own team, and I'm having a fulfilling time at work. It's great because my father-in-law is a supportive boss. From now on, I want to focus on my own goals and not be trapped by meaningless family relationships.